Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kid Stories Podcast. I'm Phil Bechtel. Let's get into a shout-out. Hello to the McNeil family out in Long Beach, California, especially Teddy. Thanks for that drawing, Teddy. I think if you were a character in the stories, you'd be the Pirate King. Of course, but you'd be the good guy Pirate King, and you'd help people out and find bad pirates in exchange for candy. Thanks for listening, Teddy. Today's episode is titled The Dragon's Egg, Part 2. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, as Lev, Steve, and their new friend Nacho made their way towards the surface. The two goblins rode on their faithful cats, Haremin and Clamshack, while Nacho bounded along beside them, occasionally stopping to sniff at interesting smells in the damp earth.
"Are we there yet?"
Steve whined, slouching dramatically on Clamshack's back. Lev rolled his eyes.
"Almost. Look!"
A faint glimmer of light was visible at the end of the tunnel. As they approached the exit, the air grew thick and humid. The scent of decaying plants and stagnant water wafted into the tunnel. Nacho wrinkled his nose, sneezing a tiny puff of smoke.
"Ah, southern swamps,"
Lev said, patting Haremin's head.
"Smells nice."
They emerged from the tunnel into a world of twisted trees and murky water. Nacho, seeing the open sky for the first time, let out an excited squeak and spread his wings. With a running start, he launched himself into the air, spiraling upwards with pure joy.
"Nacho, come back!"
Steve called out, suddenly worried. What if their new dragon friend flew away and got lost? But Nacho wasn't going far. After a few loops and twirls, he swooped back down, landing with a splash in a shallow pool near the goblins. He shook himself off, spraying water everywhere and grinning a toothy dragon grin. Lev couldn't help but laugh.
"I think he likes it up here."
"Me too," Steve agreed, wiping swamp water from his face.
"Now, which way to find Eugene?"
As Lev and Steve argued about which direction to go, Nacho suddenly stopped splashing and perked up his ears. The little dragon's head swiveled back and forth, his nostrils flaring.
"What wrong, Nacho?"
Steve asked, noticing the change in their new friend's behavior. Before anyone could react, a glowing net flew out of the shadows, wrapping itself around Nacho. The dragon let out a startled yelp as he tumbled to the ground. Nacho instinctively snapped his jaws and bit into the glowing net. He whipped his head back and forth, trying to rip the net, but it held fast.
"Nacho!"
Lev cried, jumping off Haremin and rushing toward the trapped dragon. But more strange weapons came flying out of the murky swamp. A bola with softly glowing stones wrapped around Steve's legs, sending him tumbling to the ground. And another net enveloped Lev before he could reach Nacho. From the shadows of the twisted trees, figures dressed in dark clothes emerged. Their faces were covered, leaving only their eyes visible. On their backs, a strange symbol glowed faintly. A dragon's head, inside a broken circle.
"Who you?"
Steve demanded, trying to wriggle free from the bola.
"Let me go!"
Steve looked around and saw his hammer laying on the ground nearby, too far to reach from where he was struggling on the ground. One of the dark-clothed figures stepped forward.
"We are the dragon hunters,"
he said in a low, menacing voice.
"And that dragon is coming with us."
Lev struggled against the net.
"No! Nacho, our friend!"
The leader of the dragon hunters laughed.
"Dragons aren't friends. They're power sources waiting to be tapped."
As the dragon hunters moved in to grab Nacho, Haremin and Clamshack sprang into action. Hissing and swiping with their claws, they created enough of a distraction for Steve to reach his magical hammer.
"Bad ninjas, go away!"
Steve shouted, swinging his hammer. Before Steve could power up with the magic of the hammer, his swing went wild, since his feet were still tied together, and he fell back down to the ground. One of the dragon hunters kicked the hammer away. Haremin and Clamshack hesitated for a moment, not wanting to leave their goblin friends. Lev winked at them from under the strange weight of the magical net. He whispered,
"Run!"
And the two cats tore off through the southern swamps. The leader of the dragon hunters shook his head.
Doesn't matter. No one will find you where we're going.
And with that, the dragon hunters scooped up the trapped Nacho, Lev, Steve, and their weapons, and carried them off into the deepest parts of the southern swamps. Haremin and Clamshack raced through the swamp, their paws splashing in muddy puddles and vaulting over gnarled roots. They knew they had to find help, and fast. The two cats communicated with a series of meows and purrs, deciding to split up. Haremin would alert the Goblin horde, while Clamshack would seek out Eugene the Gray Dragon. Clamshack bounded northward, leaping up from mossy log to half-sunken boulder. The cat's keen senses guided it through the treacherous terrain, avoiding quicksand pits and steering clear of hungry swamp creatures. As the swamp gave way to drier land, Clamshack picked up speed. The cat's muscles burned with exhaustion, but the memory of Steve and Lev's capture pushed it onward. Finally, as the sun began to set, Clamshack reached the mouth of a large cave nestled in a rocky hillside. This was Eugene's lair. Clamshack padded into the cave, meowing loudly to announce its presence. A grumpy voice echoed from deep within.
Who's disturbing my nap? I swear if it's those pesky goblins again.
Eugene, the Gray Dragon, lumbered into view. He squinted at Clamshack and grimaced.
A cat? Get out of here. No cats allowed,
Eugene said. But Clamshack stood his ground, meowing insistently and pawing at the dirt. Eugene huffed, smoke curling from his nostrils.
You can be gone, or you can be dinner.
Clamshack began scratching at the dirt floor of the cave, carving out a shape with its claws. Eugene paused as he recognized the symbol. A dragon's head inside a broken circle.
Dragon hunters. Where did you see this?
The cat turned away from Eugene's cave opening, lifted its head up to the southern swamps far to the south. Eugene didn't know exactly what the cat was trying to tell him, but he knew he hadn't seen the dragon hunter symbol in years. And as far as he knew, they had never come to the valley. But now they were here? In his home?
I don't know what you're getting on about, but hop on my back and direct me to where you saw that.
Eugene pointed a sharp claw to the cat's drawing in the dirt. Clamshack climbed up Eugene's back, and the huge dragon lifted up into the air, the cat meowing and tapping his back to indicate the direction he wanted him to go. Eugene soared over the twisted landscape of the southern swamps, his keen dragon eyes scanning the boggy terrain below. Clamshack clung to his back, meowing and pointing. As they neared the spot where Lev and Steve had been captured, Eugene spotted a commotion on the ground. He circled lower, surprised to see a gathering of goblins already there. The dragon landed with a splash in a shallow pool, sending startled frogs leaping for cover. Goblins of all sizes scurried about, some poking at the muddy ground with sticks, others peering into hollow logs and behind curtains of hanging moss. One goblin, wearing a hat made from a mushroom cap, approached Eugene.
Gray Dragon, you here to help find King Steve and Lev?
Eugene snorted, a puff of smoke curling from his nostrils.
I'm here because this cat wouldn't leave me alone. What is all this?
The mushroom hat goblin explained.
Haremin came and told us King Steve and Lev were in trouble. We came fast as we could, but we can't find them.
Of course you can't, Eugene grumbled. You're dealing with dragon hunters. But why would they want goblins?
The cat said Steve and Lev found a dragon's egg, and it hatched and their new friend Nacho was inside, the goblin said. But why take King Steve and Lev?
They found a dragon's egg? Eugene said to himself. We need to find them. Now.
We track! Come, said the goblin.
She scurried through the swamps until they reached the coast. Eugene could barely make out tracks and signs of struggle leading out to the ocean, probably where they parked their boat.
How we find them now? Said the goblin. The ocean too big.
Eugene gazed out to sea, wondering how far they could have gotten already.
I know where they are. Get a team ready. We're leaving soon to go rescue them.
Oh, fun! Rescue! Where are we going?
Asked the goblin. Eugene turned sharply to the small group of goblins gathered there now.
We're going to the fog.
The end. Thanks for listening, friends. The website is kidstoriespodcast.com. Send all your drawings and things to kidstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Adios.